Have you ever stared at yourself for too long in the mirror? Not because you were fixing your hair, not because you were checking your outfit, but because you liked what you saw a little too much. Yeah. Today's story is about a boy who literally fell in love with his own reflection. And honestly, if Greek mythology had Instagram, this man would have been absolutely unbearable. Welcome to Eternal Echoes, the place where ancient myths still whispers into modern lives. And today we are talking about Narcissus. In Greek mythology, Narcissus was known for one thing. He was unbelievably beautiful. People would literally stop and stare at him. Men fell for him. Women fell for him. Nymphs fell for him. Everybody was obsessed. But Narcissus, he didn't care at all. He rejected everyone, coldly, brutally, like the type of person who leaves you on red after reacting to your story for 3 weeks straight. One of the people who fell in love with him was a mountain nymph named Echo. And Echo's story is actually tragic before Narcissus even enters the picture. According to the myth, Echo once distracted Hera, queen of the gods, with endless talking while Zeus was off cheating. Classic Zeus behavior, honestly. We didn't. Shocked. When Hera realized what Echo had done, she cursed her. Echo could no longer speak normally. She could only repeat the last words someone else said, which is where we get the word echo from today. Already heartbreaking, isn't it? Imagine loving someone but never being able to truly express yourself. Imagine only being able to repeat pieces of other people's voices. No original words, no real communication, just fragments. And then she meets Narcissus. She follows him through a forest, silently, completely in love with him. One day, Narcissus notices movements in the wood and says, "Who's there?" And Echo can only respond, "There, there, there, there." Honestly, that scene alone feels like an in the film. Eventually, Echo reveals herself to him and Narcissus rejects her. Cruelly. Some versions say he tells her, "I would rather die than let you love me," which is dramatic and tragic, but also deeply mean. Echo is devastated. She hides in caves and forests until all that remains of her is her voice, an echo. And this is where the story shifts, because Greek mythology loves consequences, especially for arrogance. A goddess named Nemesis, the goddess of revenge and balance, decides Narcissus needs to learn a lesson. So one day, while wandering through the woods, Narcissus kneels beside a pool of perfectly still water, and for the first time, he sees himself. Now, pause for a second. Because mirrors weren't common in the ancient world the way they are now, your reflection was something mysterious, almost supernatural, and Narcissus doesn't realize it's him. He thinks it's another person, someone impossibly beautiful, someone unreachable, and he becomes obsessed. He cannot leave the water. He stops eating, stops sleeping, because he keeps staring at this image non-stop, trying to touch it, trying to hold it, but every time he reaches for it, the reflection disappears into ripples. And honestly, this myth is different in 2026, because now we live in a world of front cameras, filters, algorithms, beauty standards, created identities. People literally build digital versions of themselves online. Versions that are polished, edited, perfected. And sometimes we fall in love with those versions too. Not who we really are, but the image, the performance, the reflection. That's why the term narcissism comes from Narcissus. Today, narcissism means extreme self-obsession, vanity, lack of empathy. But the myth is deeper than that, because Narcissus wasn't just in love with himself, he was trapped by illusion. And maybe that's the real danger, not self-love, but losing yourself inside an image, inside validation. Inside the endless need to be seen, there's something almost psychological about this myth. Greek myths weren't just random fantasy stories, they were attempts to explain human behavior, desire, ego, loneliness, identity, and Narcissus represent a terrifying idea. What happens when self-awareness turns into self-conception? When admiration becomes isolation? Because notice this, Narcissus is surrounded by people who love him, yet he dies alone, looking at himself. That's kind of haunting. And the ending? It gets even sadder. Eventually, Narcissus realizes the reflection can never love him back. Some versions say he understands too late that it's his own image. Others say he slowly wastes away beside the water. And after he dies, a flower grows where his body once was. The Narcissus flower, beautiful, fragile, bent downward toward the earth, almost like it's still staring at its reflection. Greek myths loved symbolism like that. Nothing was accidental. This story survived for thousands of years because it still feels real. Maybe not the magical curse part, but the obsession part. Absolutely. We live in a generation constantly looking at itself through screens, photos, profiles, analytics, likes, and views. And there is this pressure to turn yourself into something aesthetically desirable all the time, to become happy, which is exhausting. And maybe Narcissus is the warning. Not don't love yourself, but don't disappear into yourself. Don't become so obsessed with your image that you lose your ability to connect with actual human beings. Because Echo and Narcissus are opposites in a weird way. Echo loses her own voice trying to love someone else, and Narcissus loses everyone else trying to love himself. One disappears into others, the other disappears into himself. And somehow both end in loneliness. That's why Greek mythology still matters. These stories are ancient, but the emotions are modern. The technology changes, but humans don't. And maybe that's what Eternal Echoes is really about. The idea that all stories never truly die. They just find new mirrors. Thank you for listening to Eternal Echoes. And remember, not every reflection has the truth.